interesting stuff.
Here we go. Hang on. She's
Is she?
Yeah.
Hi, Jem.
Oh. Come on. In and out. Make your mind up. Make your mind up, little one. Right. Okie doke. Press record.
Yes, please.
This meeting is being recorded.
Marvellous. I'm glad she's still here. All right, ready to rock?
Yep.
Brilliant. 3, 2, 1. This is Trainer Talk, the podcast, brought to you by Sharon Gaskin of the Trainers Training Company and me, Jeanette Tessier of the Get That Gang. In our weekly show, we cover news and views from our businesses along with a top-of-mind topic. Of course, it wouldn't be Trainer Talk, the podcast, without the Dog Walking Digest, and every now and again we invite a guest along to share their experience and expertise. After 90 episodes of just audio, we're now on YouTube as well. So feel free to catch up there. Just search for the Trainers Training Company or the Get That Gang, or download us on audio only through your favourite podcast streamer. So why not sit back with a cuppa, make that journey or chore go a little bit quicker with our weekly inspiration for developing your training business. Welcome. This is Trainer Talk, the podcast, and we're at episode number 115. Sharon, it's a bit hot at the moment, isn't it?
It's a bit hot. It's hot and steamy, and you know, I've been to the gym already.
Yep, me too.
Which was not the best idea I've ever had, but you know, at least I did turn up because everybody else apparently has cancelled their personal training for today, citing the fact that it was too hot. So you know, I get brownie points for that. I wouldn't say I turned up. I wouldn't say it was the most productive of sessions. I spent most of the time moaning and standing in front of the fans.
Well, you know, you were there.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly. So apart from that, because of course this time last week it wasn't hot.
Well, I've literally, the first thing I've written down here on my notes was about my week was what a difference a week makes.
Definitely.
Because, you know, we've all forgotten about the football now, haven't we?
Football? What football? I don't know what you're talking about. No, it's all about the World Cup next year, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, right. But, it's amazing how it kind of like, it's a week has gone by and it's just faded into the distance now as one of those memories.
Oh, definitely. But also, I mean, last Monday, I was walking scamp. Okay, it wasn't that cold, but I was walking scamp in a raincoat and wellies.
Yeah,
right?
Really. I know. Yeah.
And
crazy.
Now it's kind of, you know, if you move more than 3 paces, it's like, oh, I've got to have a shower.
No,
too hot and sweaty.
Too hot. I'm absolutely rubbish in the heat. I'm one of these people who get anything over 22 and then I'm like going,
Oh, wow.
Can't do anything. I just hate it. Absolutely hate it. But apart from it being hot, which it absolutely is today, and it was yesterday, the other thing, obviously, we're recording this on Monday the 19th of July, which, if you're in England, is so-called Freedom Day.
Freedom.
So how are you feeling, Jeanette? Because, of course, this doesn't apply to me, but how are you feeling?
Well, free, obviously.
Free. Are you really?
Yeah. We're gonna talk about this later, aren't we? But in the context of our top of mind, this isn't our top of mind, it's in the context of top of mind. But I was talking to somebody last week and we were saying, right, so what is actually going to change? So instead of being given guidance to wear masks, we're now told use your common sense about wearing a mask. So still wear a mask in a shop or crowded indoor area or that kind of thing, and go to a nightclub. There you go. That's what's changed for us. Yes, there are other bits and pieces around there and all the rest of it, but it is one of those things where it's kind of, okay, I'm sure this wasn't what was planned when they originally talked about easing all the restrictions and all the rest of it. So instead of trying to half inch it, let's either do it properly or not do it at
Yeah.
all, because there are so many people. I mean, again, we will touch on this in top of mind, but there are so many people on the spectrum between brilliant, can't wait to rip the mask off, burn it ceremoniously, and that's it, never wearing one again, and those people who are absolutely terrified to go out anywhere near their local high street because they're so worried about the virus spreading, and even with the slight restrictions easing, the particular variant, the Delta variant, is spreading like wildfire at the moment. The numbers are going up and up and up, and I don't think. Yeah, okay, there would have been people that would have moaned about the fact that if we'd extended the restrictions further just to get more data more than anything else to understand what's going on. I mean, the guy, did you see in the news, the guy who did the original predictive modelling for how and when cases were going to spike has said he thinks that cases will rise and then start to tail off towards the end of September. I think he was saying something like that. But then, of course, the problem is we then start getting into the autumn, we start getting into flu season.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I just, I was saying to you before that we started recording that I'm a pretty, easygoing person. I don't get too steamed up about a lot of stuff. But in this instance, I think I could quite easily see myself, demonstrating against this.
Get a placard.
Get a placard. I'm going to be a placard person because I just think it's wrong. I'm just really angry about it. It's not even applying to me at the moment, but what Boris Johnson is doing, I'm sorry, I just think it's totally wrong. It just doesn't seem right, no matter what way you look at it, it just does not seem right.
There's nothing about this whole thing that has gone smoothly or well, with the exception, I think, of the vaccine rollout, and that's because the government had nothing to do with it. That's because the NHS did all of that. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Well done, fantastic. Now, I'm sure there are things that have gone well behind the scenes and stuff that we don't even need to think about, and yes, of course, none of us have had to deal with a pandemic before, but I think it is just typical of the way this has been handled that two of the most senior politicians in the country, our Prime Minister and our Treasurer, are in close contact with somebody who's tested positive, the Home Secretary, and they say, oh no, we're not going to self-isolate, we'll do this new thing, until they see the level of outcry about them, one rule for one rule for another, and oh no, we will self-isolate. Yes, because that's what you're asking everybody else to do.
I know.
And then to come out and say, well, we do think it's important that everybody does things the same. No, only when you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, that's when you think it's important for people to do things the same. It's just honestly so hypocritical. It really, really is. But, Anyway, see, you got me all riled up now.
Yeah, you see, the ranters are out. But, honestly, it's a dog's breakfast, as I keep saying.
It certainly is. All right, well, let's move away from that for the time being. How was your week last week, Sharon?
How was my week last week? Well, it was okay. I'm still feeling a little bit that I'm sort of, I'm limping towards August. I'm just ready for not have to do this anymore.
2 weeks,
offense.
2 weeks to go. And it'll only be a week for you by the time this podcast comes out. You'll only have a week to go.
Oh my goodness me. No offense, but I just feel, just feel like I need a little bit of a break. So, but last week was okay. A couple of things, Transform Day, development day that I do for my masterminders. It was really nice last week because we did, apart from the usual hot seats that we do when people bring their business challenges, we did something around journaling, which was nice because we have one person in our number, the lovely Anne Walsh, who is a bit of an expert journaler.
Is that right? Okay.
Because I got into a conversation with her about it because I knew that she did it. And it turns out she's been doing it for years. And during the course of the little session that she ran for us on Thursday, she showed us a photo of her bookcase. She has a whole bookcase devoted to journals.
Okay.
That she's completed. over the years.
That's dedication.
And that's dedication. And it was, it was really interesting. And because she talked to us about what she does and why she does it, and gave us a little sort of journaling plan, and inspired everybody to, well, I say inspired, just gave them an excuse to buy even more stationery.
Well, there is that. Yeah, you can't beat a good stationery haul, can you?
Oh, no, absolutely. So they went away very excited by the prospect of,
shopping,
buying more stationery, but so that was really fun and really interesting day on Thursday. Apart from, again, the debacle, we keep having these Zoom debacles because you and I talked about doing the Trainer Talk clinic session on Thursday, and I said to you, well, I'm probably going to be late for it because I will be doing Transform and we don't finish till 4, so it will probably I'm going to be late for it, so it's okay because you're going to run the session, blah 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 blah, but I will hop on. And then there was some debacle because you messaging me saying, oh, I can't get into the Zoom, are you in a meeting? Yes.
Now, hang on, Mrs.
That I did tell you about.
Hang on, Mrs. This has changed from, oh no, what are we like, to, oh no, Jeanette, this is all your fault. How did that happen? How did that happen, Mrs. Gaskin? Both of us sat here on Monday going, yeah, okay, so you'll be doing that. Yeah, you won't be in. Oh, yeah, fine. Neither of us twigged.
I know.
But if you're using your Zoom for one thing, we can't use it for something else. And then I'd forgotten what you were in. So I logged into your account going, what's she got on? Let's go, it's of course, it's Transform. So we're trying to keep everybody hanging on. But it was fine. We started it up by about 10 past, didn't we? So 10 past, quarter past, something like that. Oh, no, it was by 10 past because you finished. So I logged in as you to start the meeting so that I could get myself into the room, and then had to log out from you and got you into the room, and then I had to log back in, but I managed to log back in again on your Zoom as opposed to my Zoom. It's just, oh man, this is just, look, we're both in the room. It's fine. We have people in here. Let's not go any further with this one.
Oh dear. It was that, but the reason why I brought it up and was kind of like, teasing you a little bit was because of the Trainer Talk local debacle the next day. And then there was a little bit of a pattern emerging.
I'm feeling got at, listeners. Definitely got at. It's about time. Not only is she saying she can't wait to take a break from seeing me on a Monday, she's also saying that it's all my fault about the clinic, and now she's saying there's a pattern and it's me. I'm the one that's losing my marbles.
Well,
all right then. All right. No.
It's like
no.
Brain fog.
Gloves are off. No, that's fine. Just you wait. I shall bide my time. Anyway, come on. Tell us about the rest of your week.
Well, the rest of it, so that was that, and then Friday was all about, well, not all about, but I ran the second module for Complete Trainer. So it was all about mindset, which is one of my favourite topics. So always get a bit carried away on that one. But it was fun. It was really good fun, and the people that turned up live, I think, had a lot of insights, and again I sent them off with a few recommended books to read and all the rest of it. Excellent. Which I must put together into a list actually, and we can put it into Kajabi so that people have got some
good idea
recommended resources.
Oh, definitely. So, speaking of books, have you started the one for the Trainer Talk book club this month yet?
I've already read it.
Good. That's all right then. So you just have to go back
quite some time ago. So
have you refreshed yourself, or is it still quite clear?
No.
There we go. I just started.
One I didn't really like. So.
Oh, really? That's interesting because I started over the weekend and I'm thinking, no, this is making a lot of sense, but I'm only at the introductory kind of chapters at the moment. I'm not in the real meat of it just yet, so I'll get to that over the next few days. But yeah, anyway, I digress. Yes, a list of recommended books for our complete trainers was a very good idea. We'll definitely do that.
I would definitely be doing that. So, so yes, that was about it really. Those are the highlights of my week for sure last week.
Fair enough. So then we had my week last week. Let me just write down a clinic debacle on my notes here. So last week it's an interesting one actually. So I had a few catch-up sort of meetings and a few bits and pieces to work out. But there must have been something in the water last week, because I had one person not turn up for a meeting that they had booked, they'd requested and booked, and then another person did turn up for the meeting, but only after I'd prompted them. But they were the one that asked for the meeting in the first place, or rather, I'd requested the meeting, they'd said, can you do, and this was on Wednesday, so about 20 to 5 on Wednesday, I get a message from this person saying, can you do 9 o'clock tomorrow morning? So yeah, okay, fine, because normally I would go no, because apart from anything else, I don't normally like to hem myself into having to get back for a 9 o'clock meeting. It doesn't quite work. Yeah. 10 past 9, no problem. But if it's 9 o'clock on the dot, so normally what I would say is, no, I'm not starting a meeting until 9:30. Just give yourself time, get back, look at my emails, get a cup of tea, all that kind of stuff. But because I needed to speak to them about work that I'm doing for them this week, it was kind of, okay, yeah, fine. So I said, yeah, no problem. Here's a Zoom link for us. See you in the morning. And then, so I got back, turned everything on for the Zoom meeting, and they still hadn't turned up by 15:15. I'm like, oh, great. So I sent a WhatsApp saying, am I getting my wires crossed? I thought we were meeting, or did you mean next week, kind of thing, thinking, well, that's too late, because it's after the time I'd put in the diary to do the work. And then at 30:30, got a message going, oh, I must be going mad. Oh, I'm free now if you're free. And this is actually quite, as I'm realising, quite typical of this person, of this client, who is very... they're an entrepreneur first and foremost, which I think means the same level of detail as Boris. So it's kind of, you know, they sort of send stuff through, and then I go, oh, that thing. Oh, no, I didn't mean that. I meant the other thing. Okay, but you told me it was this thing. So, you know, I'm kind of keeping an eye on this particular client, because there might need to be a conversation that goes along the lines of, I'm not working for you anymore at some point. But anyway, for now, it's okay. So got that done, and then obviously there was the clinic on Thursday afternoon, which was, as we've already discovered, or discussed rather, didn't quite go according to plan, but that's okay, she said. Friday was my Trainer Talk Local, and normally for the Trainer Talk Local I start at 10 and finish at 12-ish, depending on, you know, what we're discussing, who's there, and so on and so forth. But for some reason, and the only thing I can think is it was because I also had in my calendar the mindset module for Complete Trainer started at 11. I'd somehow fixed it in my head that I didn't need to be doing anything until 11, even though I knew the local was in there and it was in at the right time. So off I trot to my normal boot camp on a Friday morning, which is a class that runs from 9:30 till 10. Are we spotting the problem here, folks? And I was already running late for the boot camp because somebody was panicking about something that I had to sort out, and that was fine. So got all of that sorted, ran off to the boot camp, got in, did the boot camp, and it was a really tough one. It normally is on a Friday morning anyway. And then about 10:01, I'm just looking at my phone, and I get a message from one of my delegates going, is there a problem starting the meeting, Jeanette? And I went, oh, crap. So ran out to my car. I've lost a sock. I dropped a sock somewhere along the way, but that's no biggie. Ran out to my car, chucked everything in, hightailed it home. Luckily, I'm only 2 minutes drive away, like 2 minutes normal drive, so I didn't have to, you know, spend too much naughtiness on the roads around here. And sort of got in and ran up and opened up the meeting. And of course, I'm still ridiculously hot and sweaty from the boot camp, and it's just like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. No. These people have paid to be here, so I'm just going to start the meeting, go, hi, this is what's happened, but let's get on with it. Actually, I think it was obviously a source of great amusement for them, and for everybody in the local leaders group when I did the video afterwards. Where that happened then, but managed to go through the session. Of course, it would be the one where I'd decided that I was going to do a little bit of a training session as opposed to a discussion. But I deliberately said, look, I want this to be a discussion anyway, rather than this isn't a formal me presenting slides type thing. Although I had slides, I could have shown them. It was because we were a relatively small group. I had Five, 5 turn up, 7 booked, 5 turn up. 2 had to drop out for various reasons, which is not that unusual for these now, I think. But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, so it was the 5 plus me. So it's like, well, let's make it as relevant as we can to your business. So let's everybody keep their
Yeah.
cameras on, and you know, you can mute yourselves if you want, because I will be imparting information, but then let's bring it back to your business and talk about that. And I think everybody really appreciated that, and it was great because as well, as I'm talking, I can see these little light bulbs going off for people going, oh, I could do that. And then I could sort of, you know,
Yeah.
call on them and say, oh, hey, tell me, you know, what's the light bulb, which was great. And one of our number, the lovely Sheridan, who's also a local leader, actually put something into effect as soon as the meeting had finished, which was great. But I said to them at the beginning, you know, all I'm trying to do is, there might be some new information in there, but it's more about telling you what you probably already know, but looking at it from a different angle, just giving you a different perspective about it. And for anybody that doesn't know, we were talking about making your marketing persuasive. So obviously this is something that's very close to my heart. In terms of the stuff that I've done and the learning that I've done and all that kind of stuff. So it actually went really, really well. And then we had the usual sort of challenges, chances and cheers section, just for anybody that had anything that they wanted to discuss. So we had a few bits to go through on that. And we actually came to a natural conclusion about quarter to 10 to 12. So it's like, right. Okay, so I will let you go. You know, I just said to them, I just don't want anybody to feel shortchanged, because obviously we started late and what have you. And that, no, this is brilliant, this is great. And they're also, you know, furiously writing notes during the training section. So all was well that ended well. But that was, I've never done that before. Never, never, never. It's always right. Okay, I can't do that, so I'll go to the early boot camp, or I'll go to one later in the day. But for whatever reason, my head just hadn't twigged, and I'm sure it's because it was the complete trainer thing at 11 o'clock. So I was thinking, yes, I've got plenty of time to get back from the gym and get myself, because I do it on a Monday morning all the time, you know. Gym 9:30 till 10, come back, podcast at 11. But excuse me. Anyway, so that was that. Then on Friday afternoon, I had a catch up with somebody who will potentially be on my team for the lead developer stuff for the new South Central hockey area when that comes into effect. And it's a guy from Berkshire, maybe Oxfordshire, I think. Anyway, it became apparent that he's a very process person. He's a health and safety trainer, would you believe?
Oh, God.
So I thought, oh, noted. I'll talk to him about trainer talk at some point. But talking to him in the context of all the hockey stuff, I said to him, yeah, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you'd be quite interested in helping with the setting up of the processes and the standards and all that kind of stuff for all of the umpires and that kind of thing. Oh, yes, I'd be very interested in that, Jeanette. And of course, in my head, I'm going, yes, you know, because it means I've got somebody that actually enjoys writing all of that stuff. So I can do it, but I'd much rather, if somebody is keen to be involved, great, let's play to your strengths, and you can do that bit. So they're looking forward to seeing what comes from that. Yes, that's going to start ramping up, and I'm going to have to start getting more people lined up to do things. But I have got one person who he was a level 3 umpire, which is National League. Decided to drop back down to level 2 because the travel was a lot of travel, and he's got I think it's his daughter does a lot of sport as well, and particularly cricket. And even though there's the cricket is obviously in summer and hockey's in the winter, there's still a crossover and commitments and all that kind of stuff. So it just wasn't working for him. So he dropped back down to level 2, and now he's talking about giving up the whistle altogether. But I had talked to him and trained him previously to be an assessor in Hampshire. So now I'm saying to him, well, you know, you put your availability in on a Saturday, then we'll definitely use you. Oh, right, okay, then yes, thank goodness, somebody who knows what they're doing I can send out to look at people as well. So it's all sort of coming together. But we had a hockey tournament. It was the over 50s Masters down at HMS Temeraire in Portsmouth on Saturday and Sunday. And I said, look, I can do the Saturday morning, but I was already planned to go up to Dad and Anne's in the afternoon to deliver, apart from anything else, 2 lots of Christmas presents, because of course 2 Christmases ago Dad was having his heart up, and then last Christmas of course everything was shut down, locked down. So yeah, it was so hot there, but oh my goodness me, we were treated well. I must send an email about that actually, because they'd arranged for lunch for the umpires, which normally on a tournament it's kind of, you know, somebody's gone down to Asda and got a packet of sandwiches and a packet of crisps type thing. But this was proper catered in a cardboard box, like literally that big. With a baguette and some little sausages in a thing. I mean, they have a vegetarian version as well, because one of the guys was veggie. And a pastry and a packet of crisps and this, that and the other. And just looking at it going, blimey, we've never been catered for this well. So need to make a point about that. Go, thank you very much, we'll have that. Because the poor guy who had organised it all, that we know from one of the local hockey clubs anyway, even though it was organised by the Army, UK Armed Forces, he couldn't attend because either his son or daughter had contracted COVID and was actually quite ill, so he had to isolate with them. So it's all kind of, and then one of the umpires that was supposed to be there on Sunday, he has contracted COVID, so couldn't turn up. So it's all a bit sort of, a bit odd, and a shame for the guy that had organised it, because it was a great, I mean, from what I saw of it, I could only stay for the morning. It was a great day, really, really good. So the rest of my weekend then was spent sort of over in deepest, darkest Kent, over in Denise's neck of the woods. Well, not quite that far over. It was by the coast, other side of Kent. But sort of lots of rosé was consumed on Saturday night, as you do,
of course,
as you do. No, it was lovely. It was really nice, really, really nice.
Lovely. Very nice.
Indeed. All right. So, shall we move on to our top of mind?
Yes, we shall. And this is all a little bit around, well, because we were talking about Freedom Day earlier on, weren't we? So, there's no getting away from it. It's because top of mind is supposed to be what is on our mind at the moment. This is very much on our mind, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, for sure. So what I suggested that we talk about is understanding that when you have an audience that you talk to for your business, you have your core subject that you talk to them about. So in your case, obviously, Sharon, it's helping trainers to create training businesses, to grow training businesses, to be successful as a training business owner. And for me, it's talking about having online business assets. So the things that help you have a business that is primarily online, which obviously there's a natural crossover there for trainers. But both of us have an audience of people that we talk to. And of course, we talk to people together on the podcast. We talk to people through the Complete Trainer, through the Train Talk community, all that kind of stuff. But you could, if you wanted, you could also talk about everything else that's going on in the world, including things like Freedom Day or lack thereof, talking about things like politics, about religion, about any social issues that you wanted to discuss. But the point to remember on that is that the more you talk about the stuff that isn't part of your core business purpose, the more people get to know you, but also the more people will either self-select to be with you or not with you. And there's no right or wrong in that, but you do need to recognize that the more you allow non-business stuff into what you discuss, the more people are going to decide whether or not they are actually part of your tribe, for want of a better word, right?
It's a really interesting point, because I've heard Stu McLaren talk about this quite a lot, in terms of, if you're going to have a business and be visible or be a, membership community owner or, whatever, then you have to, in order to get people to follow you, then you have to stand for something, you have to have an opinion on something.
Yeah.
And I must be honest, I've always kind of like really shied away from that because because I suppose there's a little part of me sort of think, I'm like, oh, I don't want people not to like me.
Yeah,
Because you do go through that, don't you? Kind of like, and neither do I find it particularly, I don't like conflict anyway I just don't. And I certainly don't like any kind of conflict online.
Yeah.
So why would I deliberately go out to kind of, instigate that, I guess.
Yeah, I understand.
So it is a fine line, isn't it, as you say, between, speaking out about something that you feel very passionately about, but also, making sure that you're not alienating loads of people. But then, a lot of people would say that, well, that's okay, because if people don't agree with you, then they're not the right people for you anyway. So I don't know.
It's interesting, isn't it? I do think that there is a difference between being polarizing because you have very deeply held values and beliefs that compel you to say, look, if you're in my circle, you need to be this sort of person and believe these things, otherwise you're not in my circle. There's a difference between that and people who do it for the sake of doing it. So they create polarizing posts or make polarizing comments for the sake of doing it, as opposed to any big sort of more, dare I say, noble kind of reason. Because there's a word for people that do it for the sake of doing it. It's trolls. Right? These people are trolls that try and instigate division for the sake of division, as opposed to for the sake of saying, no, this is me and this is what I stand for. But there is no doubt about it that if you are somebody that puts across an opinion or a belief or a view, there are going to be people out there that agree with you, and there are going to be people that disagree with you, and you need to be aware of that. And if you're comfortable with that, then great. So we're both part of the money bootcamp run by Denise Duffel-Thomas, and one of the things that she put in her group and was very, very clear about, was it last year? When did Biden come to power? It must have been early last year, mustn't it? And she basically said, if you are a supporter of Donald Trump, I do not want you in this group. If you've given me money, you've given me money for boot camp, and that's fine, but now is the time for you to leave. Because she said, I will not entertain any kind of support for him, or even kind of, I can't think of the word, but this sitting on the fence of, oh, well, maybe he means, maybe he, no. She said, if you have any kind of positive opinion, which includes a neutral opinion towards Donald Trump, hook it, get out. Don't want you in here. She was slightly more polite than that, but she was very firm. She was very, very firm. And absolutely, there were some people who trolled her for that, who sent her not very nice messages for doing that. But it was something that was so important to her as a person that she was prepared to introduce that into her business and be that hard line about it. I don't think either of us are that hard line about anything. I would say that I will fall short of allowing anything to be abusive. So one of the things I said in my 2-minute thinker video this morning was, I'm quite happy for anybody to do, be, or believe anything they like, as long as it doesn't become abusive towards somebody else in my circle. Because the moment it becomes abusive, that is a value that I will not tolerate. It's almost as if the value that I appreciate is tolerance. And you can disagree with someone, you can not believe the same things that they believe, all the rest of it, but you can do that quietly and you can do that respectfully. Right? You don't have to. Every time somebody says, oh, well, can't wait to rip my mask off, you don't then have to jump in and go, oh, you're such an irresponsible member of society. But no, that's their belief. And if I expect them to respect my desire to continue to wear a mask in the supermarket or whatever it might be, then I can't very well then turn around and say that, it's okay for me to have a go at somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask. It's,
yeah. I mean, that's an interesting example you gave of Denise Duffel Thomas, because at the end of the day, there in her Money Bootcamp and her Facebook group, she is, although she doesn't really run it, she doesn't really run that community. Obviously, she gets somebody else to do it for her, but in effect, she's running a community. Now, I would feel quite strongly that as a community leader, you should be creating a safe space for people to actually say, as long as you're not abusive to anyone, for people to actually say and express what it is that they're feeling. And I don't think that, I mean, because it sounds to me like there's that what she's done is almost like censorship in a way, saying, you're not welcome here. If you have these kind of opinions, which I think is not something that I would personally feel, very comfortable about, because, I think in our Trainer Talk community, we've got to recognise that a subject that is very close to everybody's hearts at the moment is, the subject of face-to-face training or online training, because, technically now, because I do know a lot of people now are doing face-to-face training again, and are just getting on with it, and it feels a bit weird to begin with, but they're doing it. A lot of people have embraced it because they've been so fed up of, there's only so much of the online stuff you can take. But there are other people within the community that I know are absolutely adamant and said, I never want to do face-to-face training again, because I don't like traveling or whatever. So there will be, within that community and within that container, there's going to be a difference of opinion, and there are going to be some people within the community who will be, I agree with masks, I don't agree with masks. I've come out and said quite strongly, I don't agree with the Freedom Day thing. So, there will be, but you've got to, you just got to respect the opinion. Just because they have a different opinion, it doesn't make them right or wrong. It just means that they have a different opinion. So I would personally feel very wary about sort of saying, don't come in my space if you hold this opinion, because it's not. Because then you're going down there's some form of censorship, aren't you, really?
But again, I mean, I think that then also depends on how important, is that the right word, that particular opinion is to you. And I don't have an issue, but then I completely disagree with everything that Donald Trump has ever and will ever stand for, full stop. So I've got no problem with her saying that in her group at all. But at the same time, you're right in that it seeks, that in itself, that blanket statement in itself, seeks to divide and create a them and us, which for you and for me, our higher value is conflict avoidance, is harmony, it's tolerance, it's allowing people to express themselves.
Harmony.
Absolutely. And it's let's face it, she's done enough work to build up her community to do whatever the hell she likes with it. That's entirely up to her. But I agree that when you are running a community, you can make the choice to say everybody is welcome, just don't be abusive to somebody else. That's the only rule. And that's fine. That's there's no right or wrong in any of this. Like I said at the beginning, it's what you want to do. But if you do choose to go down the route of saying, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and you can agree with me or not. I mean, you can even do it in the context of your business. So somebody that I've talked about a lot, Bushra, she's a very Marmite person. A lot of the time she's very Marmite just from the point of view of the force of her personality and the way in which she gets her stuff across. She's been accused of being very shouty. I can see that some people might feel that, but that's who she is. And that's almost it's polarizing, but it's other people that have polarized her. Insofar as, you can listen to Bushra for 5 minutes and you'll decide whether or not you can listen to her for any longer than 5 minutes, because she has a certain amount of energy about her. And there are times when I sort of see there's something and it's like, do I want a bit of Bushra in my life at the moment or not?
You need to Get yourself up for it, don't you?
Totally. Sometimes it's nice, actually. There's a bit of white noise in the background because I know it's seeping into my unconscious somehow. But I can see how people will sort of, they will either take to her style of delivery or they won't, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, there are several things that she doesn't like, and she's quite happy to say that. It doesn't tend to fall into the political sort of spectrum of things. It's more about the way in which people behave in their business, and the way in which they go about conducting themselves in their business. So I think that for some people can be a little bit polarizing as well. But I think each their own as far as that's concerned. Go on.
One thing we are going to see in the next week, there's going to be so many LinkedIn polls saying, "Are you going to be wearing your mask after Freedom Day?" or whatever.
Yeah.
What is going on with those polls?
Oh,
Again,
completely.
Just a tactic to get people to to comment on their stuff, and it's and and again, there will be quite, when I see it on and it's not always business owners who do this. There's a local newspaper here, or not newspaper, they're online as well, called Swansea Online, and they always on Facebook, they ask questions, but they are deliberately provocative, so like, one of the questions they did ask a few days ago was about, will you be wearing your mask after 9th of August? And you get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments, and you get this polarizing kind of debate because they've deliberately asked the question because they want people to go to their website or whatever, and it kind of feels a bit off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very clickbaity, isn't it? Very clickbaity. Exactly, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's what's really interesting is I've got a couple of people that I'm connected with on Facebook. Nobody in the trainer community. They're actually part of my gym, and they are very anti-masks, anti-vaccination. From the point of view of they are worried. It's a fear-based reaction, as opposed to a sort of calling people sheep type reaction. It's not aggressive, it's fear-based. But what I have seen is lots of posts from those people just talking about how it's their right to believe and nobody can tell them what to do and and all the rest of it, but also equally putting out posts about having the wool pulled over your eyes and these supposed experts who put things out on YouTube and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but I haven't seen a single person who is pro vaccinations and pro masks saying to anybody that is anti-vax, anti-mask in a friend context. I mean, online trolls notwithstanding, in a friend context, I haven't seen anybody in my circle who is pro-vaccination, pro-mask, saying to these people, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking. Nobody has insulted them. Nobody's done anything except let them get on with it. But the posts coming the other way are as if they're having the finger pointed at them the whole time. Now, I don't see their feed the whole time. It might be coming from different, circles that they're involved in on Facebook. But I've seen more posts about people saying, I have a right to believe this. And yes, I know you do. I've never said that you don't. If you want to believe that there is an issue with vaccinations or an issue with a mask, you go ahead and believe that. I don't believe that. Right? I've had both my vaccinations. I'm going to carry on wearing a mask for the foreseeable because that's my choice. But, at no point have I ever said that, it's a ridiculous thing to not believe in the vaccinations or in the masks. I don't agree with it. I'm quite happy to say that I don't agree with it. I'm not going to point the finger or accuse anybody of being less than human for having those opinions and having those beliefs. And I think sometimes when it comes from a place of fear, I do think people then imagine that they are being a lot more got at than perhaps they are. Which, you know, doesn't really help in terms of helping people understand each other and all the wider issues.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's interesting. I get we are, you know,
we are digressing slightly. Yeah,
no, but it's current. It's current. You know, what is on our mind. And I've often thought over this last sort of 16, 17 months or so, what this pandemic would have been like in a non-social media age.
Yeah.
You know, what it would have been completely different, because we would have to have kept our opinions to not ourselves, but with the only people that we would be able to share them with were sort of friends and family. We wouldn't, you know, everybody a lot of people on social media are sharing their opinions with the wider world. Yeah. I think often without them really realizing that they're doing it, you know, but right. You know, but it's true. And it does become very, very divisive, and, you know, and people make a lot of judgments, you know, they can't help it, and all that sort of thing. And some, I would also go so far as to say that, you know, there are some people out there who are making this a sort of thing, you know, like Russell Brand, for example, who is like, you know, now the wider question are people like him, you know, should they be banned, you know, for spreading misinformation, because clearly that is what they're doing. But you know, it's really, really interesting, because a lot of the problems, because you talked about fear, I think a lot of the fear that people have experienced over the last 17 months has largely been down to the media and social media, you know. And if we hadn't had that, I think we would have been in a completely different place.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's my opinion.
No, I think you're right. The addition to that I'm thinking is, without social media, actually the newspapers had way more impact and influence, and they still have, in my opinion, some of them far too much impact and influence over the social narrative that's going on. But their influence has diminished only for the influence of some very interesting places on the internet to rise. So I still think there would be a level of influence that we see now with social media that would have happened with the newspapers, and you'd have, you know, still the traditional right-wing newspapers, the traditional left-wing newspapers, and the ones that claim to occupy the centrist point. And the problem then is that you wouldn't see much of the alternative opinion, because you'd be so in your own focused, blinkered version of the world that when you did see something different, it would have almost been more upsetting, maybe, because you know, at least with social media, you know, we know that there are people of all spectrums out there with all sorts of opinions, and we know that there are places on the internet. I mean, Twitter, for example, keeps recommending to me people that are completely anti-Meghan and Harry or anti-royal, and it's like, well, I'm not sure you can be both of those things, but I'm not especially interested in either of them. But why it keeps recommending them to me, I don't know. But you sort of, you know, if you get stuck in looking at some of those things sometimes, and you see people having these opinions going, okay, well, they're not my people, but I know there are people out there that have those opinions. So it's almost like I'm more used to the fact that there are a range of opinions than perhaps out of the social media age, where it was more unusual to see. Sorry, my computer is making noises at me, which is very annoying. It's more unusual to see people who... Nope, lost the train of thought. My computer has completely taken it away from me. Oh, that's so annoying when that happens. So annoying when that happens.
But anyway, we got very deep there, didn't we? And you know,
we did rather.
We don't go deep that often on the podcast, do we? But you know, it's some it is what's on our mind at the moment, some important kind of stuff going on. So we will leave it there. We will leave that one with you, and we would love to know your opinions, or maybe we wouldn't.
Well, there we go. Yeah, there's an interesting one to think about, eh? Give us your opinion, except don't. That'd be great. Alrighty.
All right. So, okay, Dog Walking Digest this week. What has been going on in Scamp's world?
Well,
anything to tell?
Yeah, nothing major, other than he had a very nice time staying at Mum's over the weekend, because of course I couldn't take him with me to the hockey thing on Saturday morning, because A, he couldn't come pitch side, but B, I certainly couldn't leave him in the car in that sort of weather. So he stayed with Mum as opposed to coming with me to Dad's. So he was having a whale of time, of course, because he'd get treated for just looking at her, really, more than anything else. This is my mum we're talking about, obviously. So oh well, Copper had something, so Scamp has to have something. No, he doesn't. No, he really doesn't. But anyway, so I'm sure he had a lovely weekend, but he's now sort of Sparko on my bed. And today is always a very exciting day when we come back from anywhere at the weekend anyway, because he hasn't seen the park for at least 2 days. So all sorts of things could be happening. So what it means is the walks take longer than usual, because we have to stop and sniff everything.
Of course we do.
Yes, fun times.
Indeed we do.
How's Jem?
Well, talking of dogs being treated, well, Jem's having it. She's obviously, as you can expect, she's very, very hot at the moment, and spends even more time flaked out than she normally does. But last night was very exciting for her, because obviously Ryan's home at the moment, and Amy's here as well, and so I think Ryan, obviously when we have our dinner every night, we always give Jem a little bit, as to say, just put it on top of the dog food and encourages her to eat it and stuff. And so she's really into the routine of that. And I think, as I've said several times on the podcast, that is absolutely the highlight of her day. And when she finds all this energy that she's not able to find at any other point in the 24 hours,
Yeah.
Well, last night it must have been, it was Christmas all over again, because Ryan, just filled her blooming bowl with like what he would normally do when she has her annual Christmas dinner. I was like, God, there's so much stuff. She had a chicken, potatoes, a bit of courgette, a bit of everything. I was like, oh my God. So he's happy, and then obviously that's flaked her out, I think, even more. To the point where last night there was some kind of incident involving a cat that I'm not so apparently I didn't hear it. Apparently there was a cat in the garden outside meowing really loudly, and apparently was scratching at the door to get in. I say apparently because the only person that heard it was Ryan.
Yes, quite.
Yes, indeed. And he alleges that he heard it, he got up, he came downstairs, and then I was asleep, and Jem, he said he stepped over and she never woke up. But apparently this cat was meowing really loudly. Nobody heard it. He opened the door and it ran off and went back to bed.
Right. So all those times where you've been, up in the night 4 or 5 times a night with Jem and never seen a cat.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden this cat happens to...
I know.
I'm not sure we believe you, Ryan.
No, I'm just, it's very odd, very, very odd. So the curious incident of the cat in the night.
Indeed.
I think.
Oh, I like that.
Anyway, yes. So that was that. But I must tell you about another little dog incident as well, not involving Jem.
Yeah.
But kept us really entertained on Saturday. So Saturday night we went down into town because obviously Amy and Ryan being home, so we thought, we'll go out. And we ended up down on the pier because all the other places you had to go and do the old, track and trace and all that. So we thought we'll just get a takeaway, which was lovely. So we got just some fish and chips. We sat on the pier, we had a drink as well. There's a bar there. So I had a drink and fish and chips in paper and everything. It was lovely. Sat there, gorgeous evening. So, sea was beautiful. Just sat there, and there were 2 dogs there. Just on the beach underneath the pier, and a big dog and a little dog. I think they look like, the big one looked like a Labradoodle or something. And the little one was a little, little cockapoo, I think, something like that. Quite young, I think, maybe even a puppy. It was hilarious because the big dog was like, obviously really enjoyed the water, and was going out into the water and was swimming really, really far out.
Yeah.
And the little dog didn't really want to go in and was just sort of standing there going, oh, and then kept putting his toe in the water and then sort of coming back. And we're going, oh, God, and the owners were kind of encouraging, going, oh, come on, come on. And then he'd go a bit further and then they go, yay, and then he'd kind of go running back. So that was quite funny. But then the owners decided to encourage him more. So they got this bottle, they had this plastic bottle, and they threw this plastic bottle into the sea. And again, it was really quite far. And the bigger dog was quite happy and was swimming away, really, you know, and then retrieved the bottle and then came back and swam, you know, and in the meantime, and then as soon as he got out of the water, the little dog just was in there and snatched the bottle away and started running around with this bottle. He just wouldn't give it back. And like, you know, and then this happened about 3 times. It was hilarious. The poor big dog was going, hang on a minute.
Do you know what? That sounds exactly like something Scamp would do with his mate Freddie with his chuck it ball. I wonder if there was a little bit of terrier in that dog, you know.
Yeah. Oh, it was hilarious. But
That's brilliant.
Kept us highly entertained while we were eating our fish and chips on
Nice.
Oh, and then the other thing that happened, I mean, talk about entertainment sitting on the pier. The other thing that happened was there's a group of lads there on the pier, and they were all, you know, as lads do, and they were all, you know.
Yeah.
Next minute, this lad then got up, climbed over the sort of railing there, and there was a sort of little wooden jetty, and clearly his mates were all egging him on to jump in. It's quite high, and I was thinking, oh my Lord, he's going to like jump in. Then not only did he jump in, he did a backflip, you know, and then was like in the water with his shoes on and everything. It's like, God.
Oh dear. That's how
he's wandering around the pier and his legs pouring with blood because he's like cut himself on the, I mean, honestly, you know. And then yesterday afternoon we were sitting here in the garden, so I didn't go out because it was until evening because it was so hot. And I said, these sirens kept going. I said to Amy, I said, why are these sirens keep going off all the time? And she said, because people keep doing stupid things, don't they? Like jumping off the pier, you know. It's like,
she's not wrong. She's not wrong. Oh my word. You see, it's not in Bournemouth this week. It's all in Mumbles. It
all happens in Mumbles.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. Well, on that note, shall we wrap it up for this week?
Yeah. All right. Have a great week, everybody. And we'll see you all again next week.
Take care. Bye.